Hey, everybody. Welcome to Cincinnati Real Producers Podcast, powered by Next Door Photos. I'm Patrick Braddock, owner and publisher of Cincinnati Real Producers.
And I'm Daniel Ziegler, owner of Next Door Photos. Every week, we're getting to know Cincinnati's top realtors.
Our goal is to elevate and inspire the real estate community throughout greater Cincinnati.
Well, today we have Cindy Shetterly with Keller Williams Realty Services. Cindy has been in the industry since 2005. She won the prestigious Realtor of the Year award from the Home Builders Association every year from 2010 through 2018. Since 2010, she's been in the top 5 for realtors in the state of Kentucky, and since 2018, she's been number 1. She's also been on the list of top 25 realtors for the state of Ohio for the past 3 years. Last year alone, her production volume was $153 million, and just since 2019, her production stands at a staggering 1,860 homes totaling over $469 million in volume. Welcome to the show, Cindy Shetterly.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you.
Welcome.
So really, we want to get to know Cindy Shetterly. We
Yeah.
want to know who you are as a person, kind of where you came from, your background. What did you do before real estate? So if you want to just dive right in and take it away, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So I literally started thinking about real estate a long time ago, but my high school did a testing thing that said you'd be a great flight attendant or sports medicine or this and that. So I went to Arizona State and ran cross country, and after school, I just didn't love it so much and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I became a flight attendant. I did that for 17 years and lived in Europe and all over. Being from Colorado, it's like you just, I knew I didn't want to go back to the cold. So I was like, okay, let's go somewhere that's really warm. And where did I get based? Cincinnati. So, and it was the best place ever for me.
Right.
So I really have loved this area just because it's so perfect. But my husband was a pilot for DHL, and we knew that their career things were changing in their industry for sure. And in 2005, when I got my license, 2006, 7, he said, I think I'm going to lose my job. I think we're going to close down. And I said, well, then I guess I should pop into real estate, like for real, like not just hang out and do some investment things. So he, in 2008, he said, yeah, no, it's really going to happen.
Sure.
Like this is going to happen. And I knew that going from a really great salary that he had of $350,000 to zero was super scary. And we had just bought a new home, built a new home, and just was scared to death to really be there. And I really had no choice. So I thought, I better dive into this. There was no pension. There was nothing that was going to come. So I knew we were very limited. I had quit Delta at that point. So I jumped into it and never turned around. Just went straight forward.
And that was 2008?
2008 is when I really went full force.
I was going to say, because that's like the worst time to get into real estate, right?
Well, so I didn't know that, and what you don't know is sometimes better.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I knew that in 2006 is when I said I'd go in the office and say, do you want to be my partner? Like, do you want to do a thing together?
Sure.
And everyone's like, no, you're new. We don't want you. And
Yeah.
so one of the girls, like 2 years later in 2008, when I was really cooking, she said, man, that was the worst decision I ever made, not to be your partner.
No kidding.
But her husband said, no, I'd be doing all the work and we're just not interested. And I said, okay. So I knew I had to do it on my own, and I just did it. So
That's
my
awesome.
first year, I had set a goal of selling 19 houses, and I sold 27.
Wow.
So then the next year I was like, well, if I sold 27 my first year, I know I can do more than that. And then I just kept going. I knew I really needed to change my plan. When I hit 60, I started struggling by myself. And that's when I started doing kind of like, I've got to get this together and figure out how do I leverage myself in this market.
Sure.
But
Wow.
to your point, in 2008, agents, we went from 48 agents in our office down to 13. And it just was dwindling. And people are like, what are you doing? And I'd say, well, I don't know. And I was just working. And I think they were in the habit of how maybe agents have become during COVID where it just things happened and
Right.
it was a working market. And then the next thing you know, it's, you've got to really work. It's not just
Right.
handed to you. And the opportunities are so much less. And I didn't know that 2005, 2006 market that things came to you. So I just did everything I could to
That's
make
good.
it
That's a
work.
great way to set yourself up for a potential 2008, that ended up coming to fruition.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are talking about these days too. I'm sure you're relaying that message to people, like, 2020, even though nobody knew what was going to happen, turned into pretty easy real estate, other than the bidding wars you'd get in with people. But like, I don't know if you can speak to that at all as far as like what people are noticing today as opposed to just a few years ago.
Yeah. So that trend is really, changed. It's
Yeah.
gotten tighter for the market for homes because of the inventory. So that means we're working extra hard.
Yeah.
I think we'll see some agents drop off during this time. It's gotten a lot harder. It's really doing some major shifting and deciding how to change the strategies of marketing instead of just like, okay, go out and show properties and this. There's a lot more work involved, cold calling, door knocking, open
Sure.
houses, all of those things that we did before 2019
Yeah.
are now returning. And so we're working harder for our money for sure.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to go back just to your story. I mean, your husband losing his job. I mean, you
Yeah.
have a family. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that had to have been, you kind of glossed over that. That was a scary moment in your life, I imagine. And to just dive into real estate like
Yeah.
that.
How many kids do you have?
Just one.
Just one?
So she was, we had just moved and she was 5. And so my husband was in the military from 1986. He got licensed as a massage therapist and was building his practice, worked with UK basketball and was traveling back and forth to Lexington. And he didn't love that. He loved being with basketball, but he didn't love the commute.
Sure.
And worked with clients in our homes, the Bengals and the Reds, and all of those people were coming nonstop to our home, and he knew he needed to expand as well to get an office, but we were just in this kind of limbo of
Sure.
me starting. So I never was scared. I just knew I had to move forward. There was no fear. I just knew something had to happen, and I remember the day distinctively saying that to him, like. He's like, I think I'm going to lose. I think they're going to close the doors.
Wow.
And I was like, well, then I'll just work harder. Like, I will just go into
Sure.
it. And it was just like, there was no turning back. And that's just the way it was. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I mean, I do think there's something to that. That's, out of necessity is born innovation. And I think even beyond innovation, just the hard work that you put into it because you knew it had to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, not everyone has that work ethic. And sometimes, necessity kind of forces that. I think that can be to your advantage.
Yeah, for sure. I'd always been a worker. And so I knew that whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it well, or if I had to do it, I just hadn't really, I got my license so I could flip.
Sure.
And we did 2 of those. And then that's when my husband said, we started flipping. And then my husband said, why don't you get your license? And you can do that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a good idea.
Right.
So that's how it started. Just totally casual because we did not know what the future had held for DHL turning into A-Star. And so that was, it was funny how it kind of evolved.
What do you miss most about being a flight attendant?
Wow.
Or do you miss anything?
Well, in this day and age of flying,
Sure.
it's just not fun. Like
Right.
I just sit there and go like, oh, you guys, I don't miss it. I miss my friends. So,
Sure.
we do I still travel with them after 30 years. We all flew together they're still flying except for 3 of us.
That's
2 have
awesome.
retired and 1 took a leave. And so they're still flying, and we do an annual trip, which was supposed to be this weekend that I was telling you about. So we still do that. We've done it for over 22 years. So
That's
the
awesome.
camaraderie of a crew is really, I have my team now, which is like our babies, our
Yeah.
family, but they were our family there. And just I was based in New York, flew all over the world, literally tried to hit every single place that we flew with Delta, from Moscow to, Rome, Greece, all of those places. And so
amazing.
those are some of the things that you miss. But the actual flying, the first time I retired and was on a flight, and it was like we were 3 hours delayed, and I'm watching these girls, and we're sitting on there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I do not
Yeah.
miss this.
Yeah.
I am so glad I'm not doing this. So,
That was a different era of flying.
yeah,
Back, especially pre-9/11. Things were just
it was different.
It seemed relaxed.
And it's funny because when we started, and when I started in 1989, I started, and the girls would say, it's not like it used to be. It used to be so fun and this and that.
Yeah.
So they had their time,
Sure.
And then we came in, and when we were leaving, I was like, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be really fun. So
Man,
yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
totally different. Yeah.
How old's your daughter?
She is now 24, living in Scottsdale, living her best life, and hopefully we will be there soon. We're looking at a place there, and that's a place that we really love.
Sure.
She followed me, but went to the wrong school in Arizona. Went to University of Arizona, and so I've forgiven her for that.
gosh.
But she is back on my stomping grounds there in
Perfect.
Scottsdale and Phoenix area, so it's really nice.
I think it's safe to say what your why is. Having listened to your background just now, it's pretty evident that your back was a little against the wall. Like I think that tells a lot about a person's character too. What happens when the chips are down? What do you do? How do you react? And it seems like you took everything in stride and just kind of ran with it. Does your husband do anything in real estate now, or is it you and the team, and you're just the stars, the sky's the limit type of thing?
He stayed in his lane, and
Sure.
I stayed in mine. There's a reason for that. He's super good at what he does.
Sure.
And he always said, I want to get involved. Well, and it wouldn't be with me because it's, that would
Sure.
not be a good match. It's just too hard. I think to separate coming home, and we really love each other. And I didn't want to take that away and have when I first started, he'd go, well, maybe you should say, stay in your lane, do your own business.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you how to work on your
I'm not flying
clients.
the plane for you, buddy.
That's right. So, he was going to get his license for a while, but that's
It's probably better he doesn't.
Yeah, no, he's really good at what he does, and
Sure.
he enjoys it so much that I would hate for him to come over and be in the same
Sure.
thing that I do.
That's
He
awesome.
sees how much I work, and he works long and 7 days a week, a lot, and he sees how much we work, and I think he respects my time, and I respect his time. So, like this weekend, we're going away he's running the half marathon in the Royal Red River Gorge.
Oh, very
And so
cool.
it's called the Rugged Red. So he's running that. So we rented a cabin for 2 days to get
that's
out
awesome.
and go away. Yeah, so it'll be fun.
Good for you.
But yeah, so we separate those kind of things.
That's good.
Our work.
That's wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your why and why you got into the business. I mean, your circumstances have changed significantly.
Yes.
What would you say your why is, or what keeps you going? In your industry now.
Yeah. So, I've noticed that when you have a why, it changes every year. It
Sure.
changes for me. And, building a team was so that I could build leverage was my why, is my big why, so that I can spend more time with Michaela and Andy. We just did 15 days in Italy as a
awesome.
family. And those are the things that I'm building a foundation and a legacy for her is my main reason.
That's
And
awesome.
to have quality time together is really and change people's lives. And that is on our vision board. So as a team, we pick a word every year that we want, that means something to us, that relates to us, that's relevant, that we want to aspire to. Whatever their reasons are, they'll pick a word. We also do a vision board. And on that vision, it's funny how some things remain the same and some things just completely change.
Sure.
And mine has always been to help change people's lives in my team and to make a difference to others. And so I think if I keep that as my core why, everything else kind of falls in place, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's really where I haven't changed.
That's
yet.
wonderful. I mean, that's really great perspective too. Like whys do change, the core why stays the same, but on a yearly basis, you're like, hey, maybe we want an investment property. My why is to save for an investment property,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, or grow the team or whatever, so that's awesome.
Yeah. And, the base from 2005 when I started 2000s, it was different. It was to flip, that was okay. I don't think I really had a why back then. I really didn't understand. I was doing the job aimlessly. And I said, you sometimes forget, you wake up and if there's no direction and you don't have a plan, it makes this job just a job and not really a business. And so having that direction of being forced into it changed all that and made me really hone in on what the why is.
Sure.
And it never changed from that to provide for my family, to make, us, to make it so that we would have something to live for.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. I think there's a benefit to starting a team too. I know everybody's got their ifs and whys and, and why you start a team, why you don't want to start a team. But I think that like starting a team forces you to change your mentality to a business mindset. Because now you're not just worried about yourself in every single transaction, from transaction to transaction. You're worried about the team.
Yeah.
You're worried about the people on the team. You're worried about their life as well. And you take that responsibility on. And I think you have to take that 30,000 foot view of the whole team to have that recognition on where do we want to go. And if you could speak to that a little bit from your experience on growing that team and your professionalism when it comes to, your business, because not all real estates treat their business as a business, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. 100% solid.
Yeah.
I think the difference is when you have a mentality that and I'm not saying that a single agent cannot have a business, because they absolutely can. I think Julie Back is a prime example of that. She's amazing. And she's just she's incredible. I don't know how she does it.
Right.
Anyway, my getting into it and seeing where I wanted to leverage more, that was huge for me. And so when my first hire was Marcy Rottinghouse, who is now my director of operations.
Very nice.
And she became my manager at Sipsy when she left me. She was my manager, she was my first assistant.
Sure.
And then she became that, and then she followed me. So she's been with me for a long time, but when I hired her, I did her to take the stuff that I wasn't good at and to give that away. And that's paperwork and all of that organization stuff. I don't like it. So I learned to reevaluate what I didn't like.
Right.
And that's kind of how I started my thing. Like, okay, what do I love about this job that I'm really good at? And what am I really bad at? Let's give that away. And then I got a buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent allowed me to spend time with listing and going to people's houses and really getting to know people and to help them that way. So I kind of built my business gradually and slowly. And then there's a lot of responsibility the bigger you get,
Sure.
the more lives that you have to worry about. And don't think that when we're having a down year or doing things that I'm not worried about each one of those. Like when I know someone's low on leads or whatever, I get nervous and I start, kind of shuffling and doing things so that no one feels,
kind of that pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I think some people think because there's a pie and I'm taking half of their money. Well, my half is 30% goes to salaries of my people that I have in place to make their lives easier.
Right.
So a Marcy and Amanda, who's my transaction coordinator, and marketing agent, and an ISA, and all of that. So my chunk is this tiny little sliver
Right.
out of their money. So
Right.
out of the whole entire pie. So, sometimes there's agents that don't think about that and they don't get it. They're not a team player, and I don't hire. That's why I really take time to get my team slowly, because it's you have to define and find out if they're really team players or not,
Yeah. That's
and that they
awesome.
understand. Because yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
So, whenever I hear someone mention your name, Cindy, it's usually followed by how much they love you and just how much they love how humble you are, despite how incredibly successful you are. And so, I think, it would be really interesting to know from your perspective and knowing how humble you are, was there a point in your career in real estate where you felt like you've really kind of established a name for yourself and you've kind of quote unquote made it? Have you ever what was that point for you?
Well, thank you. No, I've never felt that. First I was like, okay, when we take 10% of the market share, and then it was 14% of the market share. And now, okay, how do we get to that 20% of the market share?
Sure.
I think that there's so much in our tri-state area to accomplish that. I've never felt that we've met our potential. And it's funny because I think my husband is the same with that. Like he'll go, we need to do this marketing. I said, you're 2 months out to get an appointment with you. Why do you need to do more marketing?
Right,
Because you're
right.
2 months out. So he's the same as myself, where we just, I think that we do well. We just hit 300 yesterday units.
Wow.
So we celebrated that. But I think that every day and every year, there's something else to achieve. And whether it be growing our business or growing our team and getting, more areas or more homes, I don't know if I'll ever feel that it's enough.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've never said like, okay, I think we've made it, and then we don't need. That's always
Sure.
there's always what else can I do?
Right.
And in this business, what is great, because do I need more investment properties? I'd love to go grab another 2. Do I need more team members? And I think I work slowly in making these shifts. So it allows me to reflect a little bit more on what it is. So I never feel like, oh, I've made it, because I'm always reflecting on the next step to go forward.
Well, what I hear you saying, I think, is, real estate is a very competitive industry. But what I hear you saying is that you're mostly in competition with yourself and looking at where you've been and how much more you feel you can do, and wanting to push those boundaries.
Yeah. I always say if you keep your eye on the prize yourself, there's no other competition. And so I never look at the person in front of me, because that person could have a bad year, or their circumstances can change, and their goals might change. And so we just don't know. I could beat them like by 500 or something.
Sure.
Would I feel good about myself because I beat them and they weren't performing at their best because of their situation? So I've always been my own competitor in knowing, like, if we're doing our best and we're number 2, we did our best.
Right.
And so if I've just tried to reach out and really do our best, that's all
awesome.
I can do. Yeah.
So the secret sauce in your business is building relationships. From our pre-interview, can you weigh in on the relationships in real estate and kind of talk to how that's benefited your business?
Yes. I think Delta did a fantastic job of our training, and that was a natural thing for us to do. And we did lots of training on learning empathy and learning how to relate to people in distress situations. And that is basically, you've got people that are stressed, happy, sad. There's 5 reasons for moving, right? There's 5 motivations. And death, divorce, new baby, downsizing, upsizing. That's pretty much what there is. And so when you learn to connect with the people and you find their reason, their why they need to move, and you can really relate to them on that level, that helps. One of the things that I think gets overlooked a lot is relationships with each other. And there are certain agents that nobody wants to work with, and that's because they're difficult and they're not team players, and they're not. And we're all in this together.
Right.
And so when agents can't, when I call an agent and they'll say, Cindy Shetterly, yay, I love to work with you. Or I say the same back to them, or I was so excited you're on the other side. It's genuine, and we mean it because we know we can get the deals done to make these things happen for the people that want to happen. So all across the board in real estate, not only with members of each other, and I always refer to, like, you see these attorneys or politicians, they go in and they fight each other and they go, oh, you want to go have a drink afterwards? And I always go like, really? That's so weird, because they were fighting on the thing, but they're just doing their jobs, right? You're fighting for our clients. We're fighting for our buyers, sellers, whatever it might be. And then we're just human, and we go out and do things with each other. Awesome. So I think one of the reasons that the board does those kind of things for agents is to keep us that way, that we are all in this together. And then building rapport with our clients. So one of the things that when we are scripting, we do a Mondays and Fridays, we script in the mornings. And I tell the team one of the most important things is peeling back that onion and finding out and really listening to what people say. Silent is listened with different words, with different letters. And so if you can really find what somebody's looking for and needing, it makes our job so much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you sort of spoke to it a little bit. I'm curious how much your previous, job as being a flight attendant and other previous experiences you may have had, how did you bring those into your real estate business, and how have those helped, make you so successful, do you think?
I mean, it really comes in organically. So it's not like there's anything different. It's just those conflict resolution things that you're doing when you're dealing with an agent, or if you're dealing with a client's situation, or between a lender and a client, or that misunderstanding, and trying to resolve those in a manner that's that you're still feeling for them and understanding, but yet trying to get it done.
Right.
So I mean, it just really was just ebony and flowed. It just kind of worked in itself really well with the training that we had, and then the training that then going straight into this job for sure.
I kind of refer to it as like the bedside manner for a doctor.
Yeah.
Like a flight attendant, you have to be able to relate, you have to be able to calm, and that's kind of the same. Like I label a real estate agent almost like everything. Like you're a social worker. You could be a divorce attorney. You could be anything.
We are. There's half the battle is that.
Yeah.
And, I'm dealing with a elderly woman right now, and she'll call me 3 times a week, and I'll say, "Where are you?" And she'll say, and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" Because I'm like, "Where are you, Esther?" And she'll say, "Oh, I'm, wherever." And so I'll just listen to her. Her husband passed. She's had it hard. Has to give away her dog that she doesn't want to. And there's a lot. Yeah. And so I'm just there as a sounding board for her, and listening to things that sometimes I feel like I don't have time for, but yet I don't have not time for.
Right.
That's that.
It seems like that's what built your business, those relationships that you've built, and it's, can't deviate from what works, right? And people helping people, I think that's the main source of referral too. Like when you can relate to somebody and you can have that trust, the next thought is call Cindy. Yeah. Oh, you're moving? Call Cindy.
Well, it's funny. It's that relationship building on the airplane. We have 45 minutes to do it. This is like or 5 hours or 8 hours.
Sure.
And I would get letters. I got Afghans from people, like I'd say, oh my gosh, show me what you're knitting, or whatever. What's knitting? Whatever, knitting,
Right,
or
right.
crocheting, or whatever.
Crocheting.
And then they would send me something in the mail, or I would get, and just I would be flooded with good letters that people would send letters to. They took time to do that back
Sure.
then, and I have stacks that I've kept because I kept them for my daughter to show her. And just, there's really no reason to keep them, but they're just either from our president or from people, and they'll say, congratulations, or we had a ghostwriter and you did. And it's the same thing, taking a longer time to build these relationships, because I would have them in captive for there, and I don't have them here for in
Right.
captive. They're one-on-one, but they're over the phone or text 90% of the time. So they're not face-to-face. So if I don't have a rapport with them, it's much harder for them to understand when I'm texting them, not to take it the wrong way, because I'm not face-to-face, or I'm not, speaking with them.
Right.
So it's the agent building relationship with the client, I think, is the number one thing. And you just have to know that it's for the long haul, because I have babies that are now graduating high school that still come to our events.
Sure. Well, it seems like it's twofold too. Like, you've done a great job of those relationships, as well as relationships from B2B, like realtor to realtor, and having that paperwork come across your desk where it's like, boom, I love working with that realtor. This is going to be a smooth transaction. Our clients are going to love it. And boom.
Yeah.
So, like, when you talk about growing relationships, do you concentrate on that at all with your peers throughout the industry?
I don't really I try to make the events where there's other agents there for that reason.
Yeah.
And I tell my team members that it's important to go to those events too for that reason. And so I love doing that. Do I have friends that are in the business from other companies? Yes. But we don't do tons of social things together.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're also busy, it'd be hard to find time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So yeah, Cindy, the last thing we really wanted to dive into today was really your thoughts on, I think, what is it? 8 out of 10 realtors never make it through their first year in real estate. So you've obviously built something over the last 20 plus years that is sustainable, that is reputable. What would you're one of those people that we look to and say, what kind of advice would you give somebody who's in their first year or two, just right out of the gate, like, of all things to be thinking about, and there's all sorts of aspects of a transaction in real estate that you don't necessarily learn in school.
Right.
What piece of advice would you give somebody like that?
Yeah, I think I just was speaking with someone yesterday, but people will call me saying, I think I'm going to get my real estate license. I had 2 people call me yesterday and say that. And the first thing I tell them to do is to write down the pros and cons of this job versus where you are now. And then the second is to make a plan, because there's cost up front that they need to save for. And you have to assume that you are not going to sell anything for the first 6 months. So if you don't have that money set aside, it is really, my thinking is, it's the number one reason agents get out. They have no money. They haven't done anything. So if they don't have a plan on how much money that they've got saved, or how much money they need to live on, which is basic 101 of starting a new job or switching a job. You're either quitting a job because you don't have enough money and you're not happy, or you're taking a job because you want more money and you want to be happy. So this is no different. And if you don't have that plan and that money set aside, just getting your license, not even paying for school, you're talking a $2,000 investment up front. Now, that being said, if you want to start and open a boutique, it's a $25,000 investment. It's a $30,000 investment, whatever it might be, to start your own business. And this is a less than $5,000. You can start your own business. So if you're going in this like, oh, I'm going to sell real estate, and not having a plan for that investment that you've got, I think that's right off the bat is why majority of agents don't stop.
Interesting.
Get out of the business for sure.
I love that. I think that's awesome.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because you think if the money's there and it'll come, and you just don't realize it's going to take a while to get rolling here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's also a misconception. When you're good at what you do, it looks easy. Cindy probably had that first year of, oh gosh, there probably was some doubt, but then when you get to this well-oiled machine, and now there's all of this like outside influence looking in saying, well, I want to be a real estate agent because Cindy sells however many houses a year and it's so easy.
It goes from my hairdresser to where I get my shoes to this. Oh my gosh, I want to be a realtor. And I'll say, do some research, find out, figure out what you want to do. Why do you want to be a realtor? Tell me about that. And that's where I go first to say, well, because I want flexibility and this and that. And I want to do this as part-time. I said, then I go into, how do you do this part-time if your buyer wants to see a house and it's the weekend when you're working, So it's all those things that the planning in advance helps someone be successful.
Sure.
So that's huge.
That's great. So on the same note, would you have any advice for somebody who's looking to buy or sell right now, just given the current market conditions and what you're seeing? What advice would you have for somebody?
Well, I think the number one thing is to research on who you want as an agent and look at who we're not an agent. Anybody can open and close the door, right? The lock boxes are not that tough. So we can do that part.
Yeah.
But finding someone that is going to negotiate for you, and a top negotiator, I always compare, if you're in a really nasty divorce, you just want to go find the cheapest one, or the one that is young. You're going to take a attorney right out of law school. You're going to take one that has a proven track record of winning. And so the questions for buyers are, how many homes have you sold? What is your percentage of what you get under asking price? And all of those things that really matter in a negotiation for a buyer. And for a seller, likewise, they need to know what is the record of the percentage of how high do you get, the opposite spectrum, how many deals and all of those kind of things. So I say research that as well. So the bottom line is research for whether you want the job, whether all of that kind of stuff. But it's really so important to make sure you're picking someone that fits what you are desiring as well. And that, there's a connection there, because you're with somebody for 30 days, 45 days. And in this market starting could be longer.
Right.
So you have to have someone that you really trust and have connected to. So,
Well, at the end of the day, they're hiring someone. They need to interview them. They should interview them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about someone who is maybe hesitant to buy or sell right now due to, just whether it be interest rates or low inventory or whatever? I mean, do you have any advice that you give someone who is in that boat?
Well, the feds froze the rates for a while, so that's a good thing for us. We love that. But advice is, real estate has always been the number one investment to do. So if you're on the fence about buying, our annual increase is 3% a year, and you get to take a write-off for the first 5 years. You can always refinance after if it goes down. But if people listened to us 2 years ago and said, "Oh, the prices are ridiculous; they're so high," I could sell that house for $100,000 more 2 years later.
Right.
So that is where we're at. And people, if they'd realize that and listen to us on giving the advice that it is never a bad time to buy the right piece of real estate.
Right.
That is really important.
That's awesome. Cindy, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. I know that we're new to this. You're one of the first to be featured. I hope you enjoyed it. The thought behind this too, and I think you speak so eloquently to relationships, and that's really what has driven Real Producers and probably Danny's business too. So the relationships really make a difference, and I think when you just hit every nail on the head. I think you're just a very, very great real estate agent and a great person for the little time that we've known each other. But it's been our absolute honor to have you on our show.
It was a blast.
So,
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you're
great.
welcome. Thanks, Dan.